So if you couldn't really figure out, I am a metalhead. I love metal to death. And if stuff like this ain't evident, I really don't know what is. Now, I may not be as hardcore of a metalhead as I am a gamer, but when both of them mash together, it is one of the most satisfying things I've ever experienced in my entire life. And there are only 2 games that have actually done that. More or less, the first one was actually Brutal Legend, which combined a bit of metal as well as some gameplay RTS. It was a cool game, believe it or not. I did love and have fun with this. The second one is actually Lords of Thunder. If you guys don't know what it is a shmup. You shoot around, killing baddies. I'll show you guys what it is. But I found out there are actually 2 versions, one for the Turbo as well as the Sega CD. Which version is the one that you should get? We're going to take a look at it today with port versus port. We're going to compare both of them together, see what you like. Bada bing, bada boom. Let's see what we got. Lords of Thunder, or Winds of Thunder, was released in April 23rd, 1993, as well as 1993 in Japan, with no date really specified in Japan. Pretty much this was published by both Hudson and developed by Hudson as well. It is a shmup. If you guys don't know what a shmup is, it is a shooter side-scrolling type of game where you control one lone character against an armada of different forces, similar to Galaga, that kind of thing. So this title is very, very special, not only because of what it presents to the table, but because of its overall music soundtrack. This is what really brought me to the game, and when I started playing it, its mechanics just really blew me away. So let's go over the basic story and premise of this game. So you are this little boy named Drac, or whatever the fuck he is, and he is the convenient chosen one out to save the world from evil, or the god Deoric.
In this battle, the legendary knight Drac with the goddess Luxina had sealed the evil god Deoric deep under the 6 continents of Mistral.
So he has magic armor, blah blah blah. The cool thing is this game is set up rather Mega Man style, where you can pick up whatever stages you want to from the beginning. If you do badly in the first one, you can go to the other one, bing bada boom. After that, you choose your armor. Each armor does very different things in terms of weapon spread. Some armor are more difficult to use than others are easier, but surprisingly none of them actually have weapon elements into them, which is surprising considering there's fire and water and everything. But besides the point, the soundtrack for this game is literally what caught my eye. It is a very heavy metal soundtrack that is absolutely beautiful. Oh my god, as a metalhead who really loves doom metal, thrash, death metal, different kinds of things, this really kicks it in with a bunch of thrash metals. If anything, it kind of reminds me a bit of glam, that kind of 80s, 90s metal that we're all used to listening to. And this really kicks the game into overdrive, and if you see the gameplay, you can really see what it actually does for you. After you suit up your armor, you're ready to fight some hordes of zombies or whatever the hell they are. Let's call them Greek creatures, whatever. So your armor is your power. Basically, you can actually power it up, and when you defeat enemies, you get those gems. Those gems you could actually use in the shop to upgrade your armor, give yourself life, new XP, little bit of everything. It's very similar to UN Squadron if you actually remember the kind of shop. And on top of that, you also have the armor's initial bomb, which actually does an enemy removing shot that clears almost everything around you. And it's a really cool and very balanced kind of gameplay. On top of that, you have 3 difficulties: normal, hard, and super, which each one obviously ramping up to the next. So there we go. This is the basics of Lords of Thunder. You guys already have a decent amount of what this game is. Now we're going to compare it to its Sega CD counterpart. You already saw gameplay of the PC Engine. Let's go into the counterpart and see what the Sega CD title has to offer. Surprisingly, there's not too many changes, but there are some notable ones that I do want to point out, such as maybe a little bit of the gameplay or even the music, sound effects. There are a couple little quirks that I had about it, but I do want to get into it. So we're going to start with the gameplay of Lords of Thunder on the Sega CD. And here we have the gameplay of Lords of Thunder, and surprisingly, it's almost virtually identical to the actual PC Engine version of the game. But there are some notable changes that I do want to actually depict. First of all, we're going to go into the actual difficulty. The difficulty has been toned down slightly from the normal mode of the PC Engine. Now this, for me, I actually do prefer, just because I realize the PC Engine is maybe a little bit too hard for me. I'm not a shmup fan, so I do want you guys to realize that. I do not play shmups. This is one of the few exceptions, but I do feel like the difficulty was a little bit more toned down for me. However, the difficulty also depends on the armor that you use. If you use the worst kind of armor, you're going to have a harder experience. And of course, the water armor is what I hear unanimously is the easiest armor to use. With the lower difficulty, we also have lower hit points, meaning that when enemies actually hurt you, you take less damage than you normally would. And it's very evident when you actually play the game in comparison to the other one. You could actually see the hit points actually really do dwindle when you get hit in the PC Engine. However, in the Sega CD, you are a little bit more robust and you have more defense, so it is a little bit easier. But of course, if you want to ramp up the difficulty, you're more than welcome to do so. And for graphical prowess, both of these are running at almost an identical resolution at 256 by 224, both for the turbo as well as the CD. So there are some very little differences, maybe a little bit of palette swaps between enemies. There's literally nothing minuscule about it. That's about it, actually. FMVs look almost entirely the same, with, like I said, maybe a few couple changes. Keep in mind, I do apologize, my Duo is actually running in composite. I don't want it to, but please keep that in mind when you're watching the video as well. But besides that, they are looking almost identical, and both of them actually look great. Maybe one little standpoint I could say is that the PC Engine does take a little bit longer for it to load. That could be because the laser on mine might be defective, or it is starting to die a little bit when my Sega CD one actually runs fine. But for more or less, it is running rather nice, both in frame rate and graphical prowess, a little bit of everything. So if you're going to get either version, you're going to get exactly what you get on each one. Now the music is going to actually be the standpoint for either version. The sound quality is actually the same for both the Turbo as well as the Sega CD. The difference is actually going to be the soundtrack. So if you're listening to the Turbo Duo version of the game, you can actually see that the music is a little bit more treble based than it is actually bass based. Oh, look at the great pun I did there. And for metal, I personally do not like this. I need more of a balance. I do prefer more bass than I actually do treble. Treble all the way just sounds like ass. So that's where the Sega CD comes in. They actually redid that one. They redid the soundtrack, and they added both bass as well as treble. They balanced it out, as well as the sound effects. They really balanced it out together, and that's what I love about the Sega CD version, that the music sounds beautiful, it sounds clear, sounds great, and as a metalhead, it is perfect for me. Coming to that, we also have the sound effects of the game. On the PC Engine, they are very prominent. You can pretty much hear when you're collecting the gems, shooting the enemies when they die. You can hear everything together, and my problem is it drowns out the music, which is the highlight for me. And I do not like this one bit. If I'm listening to my music and it's goddamn good, I better hear almost every ding and every note, and I can't do that with the PC Engine. It just pisses me off. But the Sega CD version actually lets me hear everything. They actually dial down the sound effects, they dial down the enemy damage, they dial down everything a couple notches, so you're actually able to hear the music and everything. Basically, this version has an audio balance. At least that's what I think. It just sounds a lot clearer, a lot cleaner, and a lot better. On top of that, they actually added the voice acting to the FMVs as well as the shop. And for some reason, they actually took this feature out of the Turbo Duo, but they reintegrated it right back in the Sega CD with the English voice acting compared to the Japanese one of the Japanese version.
Land. His name was Duran, the last in the bloodline of the legendary knight Drak, protected by the mystical armor of Drak. Duran.
And lastly, I want to get into the price because this is going to be the killer of it all. We all know where this is going to lead. So if you're playing the PC Engine version Winds of Thunder, you're going to be paying about $100 shipped, sold, or whatever you want to call it, that's around what you're going to pay at the moment. Turbo Duo is actually going to run you exactly double of that, ranging for about 200 average, more or less, for a sold listing. Sega CD isn't as bad, but it's getting up there. But you can purchase a copy for around 175 with a nice case and everything. Those goddamn Sega CD jewel cases are horrendous, so your mileage will definitely vary for that. If you just have the PC Engine and the Sega CD, I personally did this for this video. I actually played burnt copies of both games because they are just extraordinarily expensive. I do not have the money to purchase those copies, so the burnt ones will do just fine. I don't like doing that, but for this works great. So I just want to give you guys disclosure on that as well. And finally, we have a comparison of both titles. You can see what both of them will present to you. Here's a PC Engine on the left and the Sega CD on the right. You can see both of them in action. I'll turn up the volume just a little bit so you can hear what both of them sound like together. It's literally a clusterfuck. I'll turn one on each after the other so you can see a little bit of both. So final consensus, you guys saw everything that Lords of Thunder has to offer for both the Turbo and the CD. What do I think personally? I really like the Sega CD version a lot more. The fact that the audio feels a lot more balanced, and this game does have metal, and for me, I like my metal at its most beautiful. So to hear something such as this is beautiful. I prefer the Sega CD version. It just sounds a lot cleaner. It's clearer, it's better. For me, it's what works, but if you're playing the Turbo, there's nothing wrong with that. It's still a great one to get, and I would recommend it as well. Like I said, if you guys can, the cheapest alternative is the PC Engine, so I will recommend getting that. If not, if you really want to go big bucks, maybe the Turbo, but that's all up to you. So thank you guys so much for looking at the video. I always appreciate it. If you can, like, subscribe, and even comment. Let me know what you guys think of Lords of Thunder. Did you like this video? Did you not? Or there's something I missed? Let me know. Also, if you guys don't know, I stream every single weekday at 9 p.m. Pacific time. I'm currently playing the remake of Resident Evil on the PS4, but I'm going to be moving on to Resident Evil 2 on the Dreamcast, so if you want to keep up with that, look out on my Twitch. So thank you guys, I really do appreciate the love. I'll see you guys next week. I won't be doing a typical video like I always do. It's going to be more of an update video. There's some things I need to discuss with you guys, so check it out next week, and I'll see you next time.